everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Collision Vision, driven by Auto Body News. As always, I'm your host, Cole Strandberg. Today marks a continuation of our technology series here on the Collision Vision, and this episode is a big one, all about a high-level overview of where we are in the constantly evolving arena of technology within collision repair. When approaching this overview, we figured who better to discuss this far-reaching range of topics than a couple of our friends from iCar, who continues to help guide the industry through so much of this continuous change. Today's guests are Bud.Center, Director of Technical Products and Curriculum for iCar, and Scott Kaboos, Principal OEM Technical Lead and Subject Matter Expert. We'll cover a ton of great stuff on today's show, ranging from where exactly we are today, the requirements and ROI for shops looking to invest for the future, and what exactly that future looks like. I'm happy you're tuning in today. You do not want to miss this conversation with these guys. Enjoy the show. Bud and Scott, thank you so much for joining us today on the Collision Vision.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you, Cole. Appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Looking forward to a really fun and deep diving conversation here on technology, and want to dive right in and kind of address our first segment, which is the current state of auto body repair technology. And Bud, I'll go ahead and start with you. You've been around the industry for some time, a little bit more than what I'd consider a little bit of time. From your perspective, talk to me about the current landscape of auto body repair technology and kind of its evolution over time.
Boy, is that a big topic there. Just some of the more top of mind things and the things that are really spotlighted for the industry today. It's going to be the same things that we hear talked about all the time. It's going to be ADAS and EV and some of the mixed materials that vehicles are made out of today, and joining techniques. Then you get into even some of the other challenges that they have with new skill sets that technicians are required to have. You think about the new technologies, and now we have mechanical or skills that have traditionally been considered mechanical skills that now we're going to need to have in the collision side. We have scanning and diagnostics and calibrations that are all part of ADAS. We've got EV and all the electrical side that your traditional, and I'm one of them, one of your traditional collision repair techs, would run from that stuff and say, send it over to the mechanic or send it to the dealer when it's electrical. But now with all these EVs, we don't have any choice. We have to develop that skill set on the collision side and really start jumping into it. And then you look at all the things that are being done to lightweight vehicles and make them a little bit lighter. Obviously, these EVs, with those battery packs comes a lot of weight. So we're looking at ways to, or the vehicle makers are looking at ways to lightweight vehicles. So you have mixed materials, and with that comes, unique joining methods and things like that. But you think about the crossover between collision repair and mechanical, and then really even jump into the talent shortage. We hear all the time about collision repair folks and the challenges that we have with technicians and the technician shortage, but it's really more than that. It's not just the technicians, it's really every position in the industry and the talent shortage. So yeah, if you start talking about evolving technology, it changes every day. There's more and more new technology coming out. So yeah, the challenges, they're not going away. They're going to continue to grow.
You're absolutely right. And there are so many different rabbit holes we could go down when we're talking about technology. I want to scratch the surface here today, at least, and then we can have our listeners know where to reach out and learn more for each of you and for iCar as a whole. Part of what I want to discuss, though, is, and Scott, talk to me a little bit about the most groundbreaking tools or different materials, technologies that you've seen introduced in recent years.
So we've seen a ton of new tools, ton of new equipment, and some repurposed equipment being issued. First thing came to my mind was glue pulling. We're seeing some phenomenal glue pulling equipment that's actually being used for structural repairs, things that we hadn't even had in our arsenal years ago. ADAS calibration equipment. We're seeing more and more OEMs that are endorsing or allowing the use of some aftermarket equipment. So that's encouraging to see that. all of the EV testing and handling equipment. That's all new to our industry here in the last 5-10 years, and it just continues to grow. And as more and more OEMs get in that EV space, it just continues to compound. We're seeing a lot more fixture jig attachments and specialized jigs for pulling, straightening, and structural attachment. And then we're seeing a lot of different SPR guns, pneumatic ones, battery operated ones, ones that can do flow drill screws as well. And we're just seeing all kinds of new exciting equipment just based on how the vehicles are built and how they're designed and the new technology that's going into them.
And that's a really good, I think, foundation we've laid for the past and starting to touch on the present and the future. For the remainder of our conversation, I think we're going to do a fair bit of bouncing between today and then what it does look like for the future. And I want to touch on some of the impacts of new technologies on the repair process. And I'll open the floor to both of you. I know you guys have all sorts of things happening behind the scenes, so I understand you can only share too much, and I don't want to dive too far in. But from a high level and a broad scope, what kinds of innovative technologies are you guys seeing rolling out across the repair process, affecting shop owners and technicians?
There's probably a couple of things, and I'll touch on maybe one project that we're starting to look at here at the CTC. And Scott, I'll leave the other for you because I know it's near and dear to your heart. But one of the things that we're looking at here at our new Chicago Tech Center is 3D printing. So while it's not something that's real prevalent in the industry now, and it's not out there a lot, we are starting to see some parts manufacturers and even hearing that there might be some always considering the ability to 3D print some of these parts. So you've got little brackets and clips and things like that some are starting to provide technology on that. So we're starting to look at things like, what does it take to get into that space? Is it really a viable option in the collision repair space or not? What type of materials do you need to use for that type of printing? Are we going to come out and say, hey, you should start 3D printing all your parts? No, we're not going to do that. And that's not the project. We really want to look at it and see, is this a viable option? What does it take to get into that space and start doing that? And then if you do, what are the things you need to be aware of, the pitfalls, so that you don't start printing parts that fail, things like that. So we're starting to look at that piece. And there's another piece, like I said, I'll let Scott jump into, but we've got another project that we're really just starting to get off the ground with and starting to do some things in our Appleton Tech Center. So Scott.
Yeah, so I'm really excited about that. We were able to purchase a laser welder. And right now there are no OEMs that require you to have that or even have it in their procedures to use. But the OEMs are building the cars using that same exact technology. So for years now, we've seen laser brazed roofs, we've seen laser welds, we've seen other things done with that type of equipment. And we were able to get one, and we've got it set up. We're building a safe room to use it in. And we're going to do a lot of research on it and see, is this viable in the collision repair space? And what will it replace? And will the OEMs embrace it? So this isn't something you're going to need to go buy next week or probably even next year. But it's definitely something that iCar has got their eye on. And we're going to be talking to a lot of OEMs and showing them the capabilities and doing some research on it and just seeing, is this viable? What does it improve? And is it worth the investment? And it'll be exciting to see where this goes over the next 3 to 5 years, but it's a lot of fun to be on this end of it.
I'm going to play it safe here and not dig too far into this with many questions, because again, I know iCar is working on a ton of things behind the scenes. I don't want us sharing any insider information or insider secrets. It makes me think of something that I've said a few times here on this show, but the kind of psyche of the industry a decade ago versus how it is today. And a decade ago, I think there was some fear about the longevity of the industry. Today, that fear is largely gone, and we're starting to invest more heavily in R&D and forward-looking technology. So I think that's fascinating. Scott, I'll kind of dive a little bit deeper into, from that psyche perspective, how do shops adapt here moving forward and integrate some of these new technologies that might be a little bit intimidating or scary for them today?
Well, like the laser welding, I don't think that's something they're going to adapt today. I think that's just something to know that we're thinking about in the future. But the newer technologies today, I mean, you know, are you going to do your ADAS calibrations in-house? Are you going to handle your own EVs? Are you going to send that to the dealer? If you do any or all of that, are you doing it for every manufacturer or just a certain few manufacturers that you're equipped and capable and trained to do? So there's a lot of questions that go into what do I want to embrace for my shop and what makes business sense for my shop. But getting the education, getting the training, and then getting the marketing and environment ideas. Can I even do this in the space that I have available to me? That's a big question if you're considering bringing ADAS in-house, because the footprint required to do a lot of those calibrations is enormous. And a lot of body shops just don't have the square footage required, let alone the level floor and the clear floor space and the lighting and everything else that's really needed to do it right. So that's brought on a whole new industry where we're seeing all of these independent calibration centers pop up, either associated with a small network or a large network of body shops, or just independent ones that are serving those body shops. And I'll tell you, the dealerships don't seem to have a huge appetite for it because I don't think they have the space either. A lot of them I know struggle to find the space to do it. And so these calibration centers that are popping up are meeting a new need there. But we've also seen about 15, 20% of the collision industry that's interested in bringing this in-house and doing it on their own. And we've seen some success there too, with people either adding onto their building or designating space for it. But there are some challenges and definitely some questions you need to have answered before you just decide to do it. And buying the equipment's not the first thing you do.
Well, I think it's a great point, and I do want to dive deeper into kind of the ROI aspect of new technology and keeping up with all of these changes. And the term that comes to mind for me is, from a spend standpoint, we're kind of at a point where these are good problems to have. It's opportunities for those who have the runway to see a good ROI here. Before we get into that, I want to talk about kind of a broad training and skills development conversation. I know, Bud, when we were together in Chicago a couple months ago, so much of the conversation kind of meeting wide was around training and development. From your perspective, Bud, what new skills are required for technicians with the advent of some of these new technologies?
I think it goes back a little bit to what I was talking about earlier, where we're starting to see the mechanical and collision repair industry cross over a little bit. Things that might have been mechanical skills in the past are now something that a collision tech just needs to know and understand. So if you look at things like scanning, we have a hot topic in the industry, and it has been for a number of years now, the pre-scan and post-scan. Understanding how to scan the vehicles, understanding the diagnostic side. What does it mean? What are you seeing when you scan these vehicles and you see these codes? What do they mean? That's a piece of it. Understanding calibration requirements, understanding how the collision repair and what you're doing to the vehicle is going to impact those technologies, and then what are the requirements for calibration, understanding all that kind of stuff. You get into electric vehicles. Again, I feel like kind of a broken record, but you get into the EV side of it, and it's understanding the safety side of it. How do you make that vehicle safe to work on? A lot of times people think it's just about the orange cables. Well, it is to a degree. You have to understand, don't touch the orange cables when there's high voltage there. But though all these vehicles are built and they have a ton of safety systems and redundant safety systems built into them, and in a normal situation, they're very safe. Following a collision, there's really no way for us to know what's happened to that vehicle, how it's affected those safety systems, and is the vehicle still safe? So understanding the skills required and the knowledge required to make sure that that vehicle is safe, how to get it in, how to test the systems, how to test for safety, how to confirm, disconnect the vehicle and confirm zero potential, and now the vehicle is safe to be worked on in the shop. Understanding what you need to do to make sure that you monitor that vehicle throughout the repair process. To bring a high voltage vehicle, an EV, into the shop after a collision and check it when the vehicle comes into the shop, and then just move along and repair it and never check it again. Not a good idea. You need to understand that this vehicle's been in a collision. You've heard people say things like the concussion in the battery, kind of like when you're out there in sports and things like that, you bang your head, you get a concussion. The battery reacts the same way. So something that is fine today may not be okay tomorrow. You need to continue to monitor the battery health and the temperature and look for off-gassing and all those things that could potentially happen with that battery to make sure it's safe. When we start talking again about joining techniques, we have new things out there that techs just aren't as familiar with as other techniques. They've been using the standard blind rivets and things like that for a while, but with the addition of self-piercing rivets and flow form rivets and some of the things that we're seeing in new design, technicians need to understand the skill set behind that. So there's just a tremendous amount of things that, with the collision industry, it's ever evolving, it changes fast. They need to keep up on this new technology to survive in the future.
The game has changed, and it gives me so much respect for today's technicians and the evolution that many of them have gone through and how different some of these new vehicles are. Scott, from your perspective, where are the biggest knowledge and training gaps among today's technicians? Where's the biggest need?
So ADAS safety, number one. We talked to a lot of shop owners and technicians that still really haven't got their heads wrapped around that. And I mean, that is something that can end your life. So that's top of my mind. And then ADAS identification, and then understanding what would I do to this car that could affect the ADAS, not just the collision. We're getting a better handle on that. But now as it goes through the repair process, what am I going to do to that car that could now trigger the need for a calibration requirement? If I remove a radar, if I remove a mirror, if I remove a windshield, just simple R&I items in a lot of OEMs will make you need to do a calibration. I think about, you send the car over to paint, you're going to paint a quarter panel and a bumper, simple little job. And the painter says, well, I'm going to paint it all the way to the panel edge. So I'm going to pull this little box off the quarter panel and set it aside so that I can paint the entire under the bumper area. Well, that just triggered a need to calibrate that sensor. And that person may not know that, may not relay that information, may not tell anybody he took it off. And so now we've created a problem or a situation where we've got a need to calibrate that sensor so that safety system works properly when we get that car back to the consumer. And then I still see a lot of skills gap in the welding and attachment methods area. We have a lot of turnover in our industry. A lot of shops do anyway. And we bring in new people and young people. And we're still seeing a pretty big gap on the welding side. I talked to a lot of our welding instructors, and they all pretty much give me the same story. There's some great welders out there that have been doing it for years. And there's some people out there that really haven't had any training, really haven't had any formal education, and they're welding on cars too. And so I see that as an issue and a problem. If you don't understand what you're doing and you're doing it on a vehicle that's owned by a customer, that's a dangerous place to put that customer in and anyone else who's around that vehicle going forward. And we're seeing that in, mag welding, MIG brazing, squeeze type resistance spot welding, all of those disciplines. And it's compounded by the fact that the way the vehicle manufacturers are building the car with high strength steel, ultra high strength steel, and then mixed materials, now we're seeing multiple attachment methods being used on just one simple part. So, it used to be, we're putting a rear body panel in and we're just going to plug weld the whole thing in. Well, now there may be 4 or 5 or 6 different attachment methods used just to install that one panel. So one big skill that we need is understanding that service information. How do I get that 26, 35 page document in front of my technician and allow him to digest it enough, give him the time and the resources to do that so that he understands these attachment methods go here, these other attachment methods go there. Because of the substrates that are underneath the panel you're putting on, you could actually destroy the underlying structural panels by using the wrong attachment method. And we saw that frequently when I was at my prior employer, where people have been doing it this way for years and they just did it the way they did the last 100. And we ended up taking the car off the road because it was no longer safe. And that's a big problem. And I see that almost everywhere I go.
So many things we could kind of harp on in what you just said. To me, a big one is we are dealing with life safety, and it's why what you guys do and what the industry does is so important. And even more so, it's so important that we do it right. And from a skills gap perspective, Bud, talk to me a little bit about, and we've had some guests from iCar of late, and so I think our listeners know them pretty well, but fill in the gaps on, from your perspective, what exactly iCar is doing to help resolve some of these knowledge and skills gaps.
Well, I'm not going to be able to hit on everything, or we'd have to really extend the length of your show here, but just some top of mind things from some of the conversation we've had already here. If you think about the ADAS and EV that we continue to go back to, we have a very strong list of online training that's available for both ADAS and EV, but then we also have hands-on skills development for those areas. So we have a 3-day static calibration course that deals with many of the manufacturers that require static calibration. How do you do it? What's the right way? Following the OEM procedures, tools and equipment, and understanding all that. We get people come through that, and typically the response we get there is, boy, I had no idea what was involved. What are the requirements to do these static calibrations? It's intense, and there's a lot to be done. We have a dynamic calibration course that we developed in collaboration with Ford. This particular course is Ford specific, but the dynamic calibrations, that's typically plug in a scan tool, you tell the vehicle, the system to learn, and you go drive it. But then what do you do when the calibration fails? So understanding the systems and how they're all fused together and how that all works, we have curriculum on that. We've talked a bit about mixed attachment methods today, and we are in the process of developing a mixed attachment course. So it will deal with things like, typical just mag brazing, MIG brazing, mag welding, spot welding, rivet bonding. Some of those things will all be part of the same course. We've got things like the repairability technical support team and the new RTS app. Anybody that hasn't seen that yet, if you go to whichever phone you use, if you go to Apple or Android and you can download the app, this allows you to go in and search your make model, and it'll pull up anything that iCar has available to help you and assist with information on the year make model you're working on. It's really a cool new app that we have out there. We've got our collision careers program and what we're doing there to help with attracting and retaining and all of that with new talent. We've got our new academy curriculum that focuses on the knowledge and skills that the industry has told us are important for entry-level technicians. We've got a format or an environment that we call Repairers Room. It's a live broadcast that is once a month. It's the last Wednesday of every month at noon Central, and we have technical folks on there talking about technical topics. This month, we have one that is on, let me think, Jared, I think it's on refinish. So it's on color match and some of the challenges that professionals have there. We have some of the refinish makers that will be live in the broadcast with us and answering some questions and helping with some of those things. And I could go on and on, but just-in-time videos we've got out there. We do a live broadcast from SEMA. That's a big one. So SEMA is a big national event, and we have 3 days, Scott? Is it 3 days, 4 days?
4 days.
4 days. 4 days of SEMA that we do live broadcast with.
Wow.
OEMs, tool and equipment makers, product makers, you name it. We do all that. And then we also have the Training Alliance, where we align with vehicle makers and tool and equipment and product makers out there, so that if there's training that they offer that aligns with the knowledge and skills protocol that iCar and the industry has established, that you can get training credit for taking training through the Alliance partners. So I know that's long-winded, but we have an awful lot of things that we do to help, and I could go on and on.
I know it. We truly could have a few shows, I think, on just the resources there. Very impressive, very impactful for the industry. I want to segue into what we touched on a little bit, and that's the economics of some of these new technologies, that ROI calculation. Our listeners here on the Collision Vision, they come here for a lot of business talk. We have some really good business people here. And so that financial component's very important. Scott, I learned we're very fortunate to have you on here as a financial planner in a past life. I think that allows for a very unique perspective. And so I'll start with you. Can you discuss how business owners should be looking at that kind of cost benefit analysis when considering investing in new repair technologies?
Sure. And it's a huge decision. I mean, to me, the days of body shops being all things to all vehicles and all people are dwindling quickly. So the first thing is look at your car count. Look at your vehicles that you're working on. Are you working on 50% of one manufacturer's vehicles? Is there a high percentage that are in 2 or 3 different ones? And then you've got to decide, do you have the space available to do what you'd like to do? And you mentioned earlier, Cole, that this is a opportunity for shops to have a new revenue stream in their building. And I think that's a great way to look at it. It's not a requirement. It's not a mandate. It's an opportunity where you need to make a smart business decision. You need to weigh the cost. Look at, do I have the facility? Do I have the manpower? Do I need to hire somebody to do this? And if so, how many of those vehicles have I touched in the last 6 months or year? And what do I expect that to look like going forward in the next year or 2 or 3? The biggest opportunity to me is ADAS and EV because, that's the newest technology that's coming out. And there's a lot of shops that aren't doing that in-house or addressing that now. And to me, that's a huge opportunity where I could bring ADAS into my business just for the top 2 or 3 manufacturer vehicles that I work on. And so I'm not going to do everything for all people, but I'm going to tip my foot in the water with those few manufacturers that I see a high volume of. And as I get to experience that, I'll buy the tools and the equipment and do the training, and I'll get to see that revenue stream start to come in. And if it makes sense, I could expand to others as well. So I think that's a good idea, is to specialize. I think we're going to see more of that anyway, where not everybody's going to fix every car that comes in the door. And I think that's a good thing. So building a good network of referral business around you that, hey, I don't want to work on these vehicles, I'll send them to you, but I really specialize in these 2 or 3. If you could send them to me, we could have a great win-win relationship. And I think there's lots of opportunities around that in our industry right now.
I think it's very well put. And you touched on it here, but I'd like your input a little bit further, specifically on putting that shop owner hat on and those glasses. What factors should business owners consider when deciding whether or not to make that investment, and what that runway and ROI might look like?
Well, I think Scott did a great job of covering a lot of the things that I would say a shop owner needs to consider. The first one is just analyzing your business. Understand, what does the business need? You don't want to just run out and invest in all the tools and equipment without understanding, what is the need in your business. If you're, as Scott said, specializing or seeing a bigger chunk of your business come from a couple of brands, you want to focus on that. But I think the other piece they need to really think about is, even if you're not doing it today, what does the future look like? Because as we see technology and electronics and things become a bigger and bigger piece of the collision repair process, I guess I would look at, how long can you afford to continue to let that be something that you're subletting out and you're sending out to a third party? Does it at some point become a necessity that you have to start looking at how your business is set up and structured and things like that, to just making sure that you're keeping an eye on where the industry is going so that you're prepared, when the market changes, or if something changes, where you need to go. Scott talked about space requirements and things like that. Well, that's a big piece of it, especially with ADAS. You start to look at ADAS calibrations and the space requirements, and the fact that you need the right lighting conditions, and you can't have reflective surfaces, you can't have metal, that's going to interfere with what you're doing with the calibrations. It's a big deal. A lot of shops just aren't set up with that. Some manufacturers are requiring a level flat floor surface. Most shops, in fact, I don't know that I've ever been in a shop that, unless it's set up to specifically be that way, has a level flat floor. So they just don't have the system or the environment to do that. So just understanding all of that, the vehicle, maker service procedures and the training requirements and the investment, it's just really all about understanding the business, the technology that's coming, and then staying on top of it so you can stay ahead of that rather than being caught flat-footed.
Well put. A lot to consider, and another good segue into, you guys are setting me up for success here. Kind of our last broad topic I want to chat with you guys about today, and it's one of my favorite topics we get to touch on here at the Collision Vision, and it's the future. And I'd ask that both of you kind of go ahead and pull out your crystal ball and tell me. And Scott, we'll start with you, and Bud, I want your input here as well. What future technologies, and we can go as far out as you'd like or as nearby as you'd like, do you foresee becoming just an integral part of the collision repair business?
Well, we're already seeing some new procedures and things like that from the OEMs. We're seeing specialized paint procedures in like the bumper cover areas over the new radars that are coming out, where you're not going to blend over those areas. You may not even be able to use the same paint formula that you did on the car on the bumper. So that's brand new, that if you make a mistake there, if you just go by your tribal knowledge and say, well, this is how I've always done it and do it that way, you could be disabling or interfering with the safety system of the vehicle. So that's a big deal. And then we're still seeing multiple and mixed attachment methods. We kind of talked about that quite a bit. We're seeing vehicles that are steel, aluminum, carbon fiber, all kinds of different materials all together on the same vehicle. And we're bonding them and rivet bonding them and doing all kinds of different attachment methods for that. So understanding your vehicles, understanding the service information that the manufacturers give us on how to repair those type of vehicles or what can and can't be repaired is just as important. I think we're going to see a lot more rivet bonding, including self-piercing rivets, flow form rivets. I think that's going to become mainstream. We're seeing more manufacturers going to the giga casting or mega casting method of assembly. It's a lot more cost effective for them to build a vehicle that way. So I think that's going to be our future 10 years down the road, where we're going to see a lot more of that. That's going to lead to more rivet bonding, number one. It's going to lead to maybe more total losses because some of those castings aren't allowed to be repaired at all, and it becomes quite an intrusive repair. So we may see more total losses because of that. And then we're always going to be learning and growing, and that's the cool thing about this industry. I mean, I was fixing my first car back in the 80s, and I look back at how I fixed that car, and it's almost embarrassing. And now it's like, we would never think of doing that anymore. But it was the norm back then, and it was acceptable. And so much has changed on an annual basis. If you stop learning, you're going backwards because the cars are moving forward. The technology is moving forward. The manufacturers are moving forward. If you don't keep moving forward and keep learning and keep growing, you'll end up backwards. And as a business owner, as a technician, I never wanted to be that guy that was behind the ball. I always wanted to be looking where it was going and get there. And it's going to be a challenge because it is growing faster than ever now. And it is very hard to keep up. I get it. It's a challenge. But if you're not actively engaged and actively participating, you're going to fall behind. There's just no way tribal knowledge is going to keep up. It just doesn't work anymore.
Man, that was a heck of a soundbite. Could not agree more. That's really, really good stuff. And Bud, I'd like to ask you the same question from your perspective. Fill in the gaps there. What are you thinking, new technology wise, is coming down the road here that's just going to change the game?
Unfortunately, with that big soundbite, that Scott just had a lot of meat on the bone there. But he touched on some really big things, right? He touched on all the joining techniques. Scott and I have had the fortune of having a lot of conversations and meetings with manufacturers and talking about what's coming in the future. And he's right. The things that he talked about with the mega castings, the giga castings, the self-piercing rivets and the full form rivets and the aluminum, and all of this stuff is coming. People are going to have to stay prepared. They're going to have to stay ahead of that.
Fantastic. And Bud, I'm going to stick with you here and kind of bring this home for me. What advice would you give a collision repair shop owner on how to prepare right now for the technology of tomorrow?
I think the first thing I would say is if you don't already have one, implement a learning culture. You
Mhm.
need to have that culture in your shop, in your business, that it's a continuous learning environment. You need to understand that again, this industry is ever changing. It evolves it evolves quickly, and you have a lot of new technology coming. If you don't stay ahead of it, you're going to get behind, and it's going to be tough to catch up. So I would say the learning culture is a big piece. Um, some of the other challenges that they have, engage with your community. If you think about where they would get talent and some of the things out there, just engage with the local vocational programs and your career fairs and things like that. That'll help you engage with the community and get younger people interested in the industry and understanding the big benefit that there is to coming into the collision industry, the career opportunities and all those things that come in. I think I'd also say take advantage of resources that are available to you. So if I just use iCar for example first, we talked about RTS. It's a great resource for you. Go out there. They are publishing articles every day. They have new information that's available out there. If you have challenges finding OEM information or you don't understand it, you can reach out and they'll answer the questions for you. If we don't have the answer for you, we have direct ties to all the vehicle makers. We'll get the answer for you. I talked a little bit earlier about the Collision Careers program. If you haven't seen it yet, go to collisioncareers.com. It gives you links between repairers and students and schools and all the other different resources that are out there to help you with some of those staffing challenges and the talent challenges. And then even I would say take advantage of the trade associations and things that are out there. So you've got things like CIC, the Collision Industry Conference, or to name a few, SCRS or Collision Advice, or some of the others that are out there that can really help you with some of the challenges you might be having and connect you with others in the industry that are facing the same challenges and help you understand some of the things that they've done to improve the situation. So off the top of my head, those are a few.
Fantastic. All really good stuff. And probably dipping into how we typically like to end our show, and really good stuff. As you know, we like to end each episode of the Collision Vision with 3 key takeaways. I feel like we had 6 or 7 or 8 that could easily be the tops here just in the last couple of minutes. From both of your perspectives, what do those key takeaways look like from our conversation today?
You want me to go first, Scott? I think
Sure.
what I just said, the learning culture, that's big. Yeah, it really is. Nobody has ever learned everything that they need to learn about this industry. It changes so quick, it evolves so quick. You need to have that learning culture. I would say stay on top of your market. Understand your business and what's going on in the market so that you're prepared for the future rather than reacting. You're preparing and getting yourself set up for the future, and take advantage of those resources. There's a lot out there. A lot of people that are willing to help, and just understand the resources out there and take advantage.
Love it. Scott, anything to add there?
Always be learning. Don't be afraid to specialize. Do what you're best at and let somebody else do the rest.
Man, there we go. Love the sound of that. And we just got a 2-for-1 on 3 key takeaways. Instead of 3, we got 6. We're going to take that all day. Bud, I'll start with you. Where can people get in touch with you and follow along with what you and your team at iCar do?
So there's a couple of things they could do. I mean, if they can reach out anytime you have a question. We have a couple of things out there. We have our repairs realm that I talked about earlier. And if somebody has a collision related question, they can send that to repairsrealm@i-car.com. And we always have our subject matter expert team that monitors that mailbox. And if there's somebody has questions, we'll respond and answer there. You have Ask iCar, the RTS team. You can submit questions through them and they can have that. If they want to reach out to me personally, it's just Bud.Center@i-car.com. I'm happy to help any way I can.
Fantastic. A brave man putting your direct contact info out into the universe. But I appreciate that. Love that. Some great stuff. Scott, how about you? Where can people follow along?
Scott.Kaboos@i-car.com.
There we go.
I'll be glad to work with you, help with you, getting you in touch with the right people. I work with everybody in the industry at this point. So I'm dealing with technicians, I'm dealing with shops, I'm dealing with manufacturers. And I'm not always the right guy to talk to, but I can help you find the right guy or person.
Fantastic. And I'll be sure to put all those links and email addresses in the show notes for anyone listening. Make that easy. One click and we'll make it happen. Bud and Scott, thank you both so much for the insights today, for everything you do for the industry, and for joining us here on the Collision Vision.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having me, Cole.
Thank you again to Bud.Center and Scott Kaboos for joining us on today's show. Their perspectives are unique and wide-ranging, and I felt they both shed some great light on all that's happening around us today and what will be happening in our industry in the future. We got 6 key takeaways instead of our normal 3, so rather than diving into each too much and pontificating on each, I'll list them off right here. Bud's were: number 1, create and foster a learning culture. Love that one. Number 2, stay on top of your market. And by that, we're talking about understanding what is happening both inside and outside of your business to be prepared for the future. Number 3 for Bud, take advantage of the numerous resources out there to help you, offered by the industry. Scott's takeaways were: number 1, always be learning. Number 2, and this was a theme with Scott, don't be afraid to specialize. We're not going to be all things to all people for too long. Lastly, do what you're best at and let someone else handle the rest. That's all for today's episode. If you enjoyed it, please be sure to follow along and give us a share with your network wherever you enjoy your podcast. And go ahead and give us a watch on YouTube, where the Collision Vision lives in video form. If you haven't checked it out, my cat Leo surprisingly did not make an appearance on camera today, but he often does, so you don't want to miss that on video. On behalf of the Auto Body News team and myself, thank you for coming along for the ride.